What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody is doing well out there this week, where we're talking about which running backs we should start and sit for Week 10 fantasy football. Now, yes, this is the week I've been waiting for because of the return of Nick Chubb. Little did I expect that we could lose CMC after just a few hours on Sunday. We'll talk about it here in a minute when we get into all the Week 10 matchups. But first, how do we do in Week 9? Well, we did pretty good, actually, for the running back position. Out of the 51 players we gave a start or sit designation to, 36 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 71%. I do not like having to take misses on the likes of Zeke Elliott, James Conner, and Derrick Henry, but it is what it is. Some of the other misses on the week: Jermichael Hasty, thanks for doing nothing, but technically, how much can they really run the football when they were down 21 in like 5 minutes, it felt like. Rex Burkhead had himself a ball game once again, randomly. Wayne Gallman continues to find the end zone. He was a miss. Some of the hits. Jonathan Taylor had him as a sit last week. Actually sent him to the pit of misery on the Saturday night live stream. We're going to start calling this dude Dilly Dilly until he can actually start, producing on a consistent basis. He's kind of a liability at this point. Antonio Gibson didn't get very many touches, but was still a hit. Same thing for DeAndre Swift. Hopefully these young guys can continue to get these carries as the season progresses, and they can be some pleasant surprises for maybe some of these underperforming studs here in fantasy football thus far. But now it's time for Week 10. Who should we start and who should we sit? We're going to kick it right off with the Thursday night matchup. And that's where we got the Indianapolis Colts and Tennessee Titans, and this is not really what Derrick Henry owners really want to see, right? He underperformed in Week 9 in a very difficult matchup going up against the Chicago Bears. Now he gets the Colts defense, a defense which allows just under 14 fantasy points per game, fourth best in the NFL against opposing running backs, but the volume continues to be there, right? As of right now, halfway through the season, he's on pace for 364 carries and 1,700 yards. Big stats for Derrick Henry, and we know that volume is going to continue, right? He's going to see about 18 touches a game minimum. He hasn't had less than that in a game so far this year. Plus, prior to Week 9, he'd had at least one touchdown in 5 straight weeks. The touchdown upside is something we always talk about with Derrick Henry. So once again, in this matchup, his yardage may be a little bit lower, but I do expect him to find the end zone this week and be a solid start for you once again here in Week 10. What about the Colts? What do we do with Dilly Dilly? Now, I said it in the intro. Dilly Dilly is now Jonathan Taylor because I've sent his butt straight to the pit of misery after the start to the season here. Did the touchdown first half last week make me clinch up a little bit? Yeah, it did. I was like, oh, great. This is going to totally backfire. Then he fumbled. It was returned for a touchdown, and back to the pit of misery he goes. It's just kind of hard to figure out this backfield, right? I mean, he was out-touched once again by Jordan Wilkins. Not much of a surprise. But it's not a bad matchup. Tennessee allows just about 20 fantasy points per game. But who are they going to allow them to? I mean, we have a lack of touches now with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's strictly touchdown dependent, and the touchdowns he's getting are from the goal line. It's not like he's breaking off any big runs. Nyheim Hines, his consistency in the passing game is totally hit or miss. As of right now, Jordan Wilkins gets the bulk of the touches, but his ceiling isn't overly high, especially if JT is getting the goal line touchdowns. This is just one of those situations in fantasy football that is a total headache. I would prefer to sit all of these guys, even though it's a great matchup. If I have to take a stab at one of them, it's still going to be Jordan Wilkins. I mean, as of right now, I have to chase the volume, and he's the only one consistently getting the volume as of right now in this backfield. Time to move over to Sunday football. Now we have the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants, and it's time to bring back the Booby. That's right, at Booby Miles on Twitter, Miles Sanders should return to the game this week. And how dominant could this guy be? Well, he's only played in like 4.5 games this season so far. He's running back 25 overall, and he's actually averaging 0.1 yards per carry more than Dalvin Cook. No, I'm not saying he's Dalvin Cook, but the explosiveness is there for one Miles Sanders. If we can just keep him on the field, he gets a matchup this week against the New York Giants, who allow just over 18 fantasy points per game. Plus, Philadelphia is finally starting to get a little healthy. There's a chance that Alshon Jeffrey also comes back this week. What does that have to do with Miles Sanders? Well, if they can continue to get some of these weapons healthy on the outside and pull defenders outside of the box, Sanders could just eat underneath, and that's what we're looking for as fantasy owners. Now, on the Giants side of things, I don't love it, right? I still don't love it. Even though Wayne Gallman continues to go out there and have a safer floor, do we get Devonta Freeman back this week? I mean, it's already a team that really doesn't run that much anyway. in New York. If you add Freeman to the mix with Gallman and Alfred Morris, I mean, heck, Dion Lewis touches the ball maybe once or twice a game. It doesn't really matter. Can we really depend, and are any of these guys safe if they all play? Now, like I said, Wayne Gallman does have a touchdown in 3 straight games. Yeah, not bad. If I had to take a stab on one, it may be Wayne Gallman, especially if Devonta Freeman does sit this week. It's something we need to pay attention to, though, throughout the week and as it progresses in the practice reports. It's not an easy matchup, though, going up against Philadelphia. They allow right around 16 fantasy points per game, and in my opinion, I would prefer to sit all of the running backs in New York if possible. Moving on to Jacksonville and Green Bay, and the James Robinson tour continues here once again this week in Week 10. Currently running back 4 overall in fantasy football, and now he gets a matchup going up against the Green Bay Packers, who allow over 27 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That's second most in the NFL. But here's what's really great about this situation. It's rookie quarterback Jake Luton. Maybe you didn't get a chance to watch the game last weekend. Jake Luton, he's not afraid to throw the ball deep down the field. We saw that over and over last Sunday, and all that really does is help James Robinson, because now opposing defenses really need to pay attention to that passing game. They can't just key in on the running game anymore, and that should open up more lanes for James Robinson. He's currently on pace this year for a combined 1,600 total yards and 14 touchdowns. I really hope you are a member of our Patreon early on in the offseason when we told everybody about James Robinson back in July, because he's been helping people win fantasy football matchups all season long. So yeah, he's definitely going to be in your lineup here. Great option here this week, but his schedule is starting to get a little bit rougher, so keep your fingers crossed, and we'll have to pay attention to that as the season progresses. What about for Green Bay? It was great to have Aaron Jones back on the field last week, absolutely, even though the last few games he's played in haven't been huge, right? But now he gets a juicy matchup, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who allow right around 22 fantasy points per game, 6th most in the NFL. We really need a big day here from Aaron Jones. We really need him to help carry our fantasy football teams in Week 10. Why? He's getting ready to approach a hard stretch himself. His next 3 games, Indianapolis, Chicago, Philadelphia. We need us some big Aaron Jones here in Week 10. Time to talk Washington football team, Detroit Lions, and this could possibly be, I'm almost positive, this is the first time I've ever started 2 running backs at the same time in the Washington backfield. I mean, we're going double football team here in this game, because Antonio Gibson continues to look explosive in this running game, plus continues to find the end zone. J.D. McKissic has turned into a PPR dream. Is Alex Smith the quarterback here as of right now? Because last week, J.D. McKissic saw 14 targets out of the backfield. Now they have a matchup going up against the Detroit Lions, who allow well over 30 fantasy points per game, most in the NFL to opposing running backs. Heck, they allow almost 10 fantasy points a game just through the air to opposing running backs, and that's what makes me want to start J.D. McKissic here once again. What we really need in this football game is it to be close, right? Because when we get the dump-off passes underneath the J.D. McKissic, plus we have the opportunity for more rush attempts for Antonio Gibson. A close game here could result in some big games for both of these guys. As for Detroit, DeAndre Swift continues to lead this backfield now in touches, which is great to see. However, they just can't seem to shake off Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson. They're getting just enough touches to really hold back that ceiling of DeAndre Swift. I mean, his role, though, continues to expand in this offense, and Washington allows right around 17 fantasy points per game. In my opinion, this backfield, the safest start is still going to be DeAndre Swift. He's averaging right around 5 targets per game, and that's what gives him that safer floor, in just hopes that this game can stay close and he can continue to get carries on the ground, because that's what will give you that higher upside for the week here in Week 10. What about the Houston Texans and Cleveland Browns? And by a show of hands out there, who is excited for the return of Nick Chubb? I mean, I'm so excited for the return of Nick Chubb, and all signs are pointing to it being this week against the Houston Texans run defense. Yes, that's what we need right now in Week 10, because Houston allows just over 26 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That's 3rd most in the NFL. Plus, now we can slide Kareem Hunt back into the role that we saw be very successful earlier in the season, and we know this offense runs through Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt wasn't a huge threat in the backfield, not like we saw from Nick Chubb. Now that they get both of these guys back in their original roles, this offense can go back to what we saw earlier in the season, right? Maybe not depending on the passing game so much, really having Chubb eat up those early down carries, using Hunt more in the passing game, maybe in the slot a little bit more. Definitely something that could benefit both of these guys going forward. So yeah, they're absolutely going to be a must-starts for me here this week. For Houston, man, I hated to see David Johnson get concussed in that game so early last week. That hurt a lot of fantasy football teams, no doubt. Now, does he get cleared? He should, but it's something we need to pay attention to here as the week progresses, because Duke Johnson really didn't do a whole lot in the absence of David Johnson. Now, yeah, Duke found the end zone, but he only averaged 2.5 yards per carry against Jacksonville. Now, if David Johnson is cleared, I'll make him a start here this week, but with a limited ceiling, right? Not one of these huge smash opportunities, because it is easier to throw on Cleveland than it is to run on Cleveland. We could see a whole lot of Deshaun Watson here this week. On to the rematch of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers, and why can't we just have nice things? I just don't. Why can't we have nice things this year? We got Christian McCaffrey back for 2.5 hours at best, and then he suffered a shoulder injury, and word is coming out that this shoulder injury could cause him to miss time once again. It's something we'll pay attention to here as the week progresses and keep you updated. So we can bring back Mike Davis, I guess. Hopefully you didn't drop him. Hopefully you kept him on your bench, because now all of a sudden he's fantasy viable again. Even though it's a difficult matchup going up against Tampa Bay, they only allow 15 fantasy points per game. Now in week 2, when these two teams faced off, he had 8 receptions. And that's what they need to do with Mike Davis. We saw it towards the tail end of the first Christian McCaffrey injury. They started to go away from Mike Davis in the passing game, and he really became a liability for your fantasy football team. If they don't give him the passing work, he's super touchdown dependent, and it really lowers his ceiling. I don't have that warm fuzzy on this one. Mike Davis still going to be a start, but more as a flex option at best. I'm really worried about his potential ceiling in a difficult game here this week. For Tampa Bay, it's a great matchup, right? Going up against Carolina, they allow over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, but neither one of these guys, neither Fournette or Jones, could get going in week 9. Why? Because New Orleans was just spanking them from the get-go, right? They never had a chance to establish the running game at all. They looked horrible. Now, as of right now, Leonard Fournette seems to be the leader in the backfield as far as the passing work goes, which really makes him the safer option at this point. I do expect that Tampa Bay tries to come out and establishes the run early, so then they can open up the passing game and try to get this offense going, because as of right now, they have to continue to do something differently. It was bad, really bad in week 9. Do they try to get Antonio Brown more involved here this week? What about Gronk? A lot of questions here, and if I have to trust one of them in the backfield, as of right now, it's still Leonard Fournette. Chargers and Dolphins, and Kalen Ballage finishing week 9 of fantasy football as the running back 4 overall is just something we add to the list of WTF moments here in 2020. I mean, Justin Jackson went down super early. I think he only played 3 snaps in this game this past week. So maybe we expect a lot more Joshua Kelly. Nope, he was out-touched by Kalen Ballage, who came in and had 84 total yards and a touchdown, finishing as RB4 overall. But now with that performance, if you want to call it a performance, one of the best we've ever seen from Kalen Ballage, does that drop Joshua Kelly down the depth chart and bump up Kalen Ballage? It's possible, but it really depends on the health of Justin Jackson. If Justin Jackson's going to miss some time, we'll see more Kalen Ballage. If Justin Jackson's going to be good to go this week, which signs are kind of looking like they will be, we won't see Kalen Ballage. Just another one of these backfields we need to pay attention to here as the week progresses, because another name that we haven't talked about yet was Tremaine Pope, who missed last week also. There's a reason we saw Kalen Ballage. He's not that great. The injuries played a part, and do these guys come back in week 10? It's something to pay attention to. As of right now, if Justin Jackson starts, he's the guy I go with. If he sits, that's when Kalen Ballage becomes that option. For Miami, the running game without Myles Gaskin was ugly, right? I mean, the running backs in this game combined for 18 carries for 57 yards. It makes them really touchdown dependent too, right? Because there's numerous names in this backfield all getting touches, and it seems like all Jordan Howard does is score touchdowns. And he gets them from the goal line. I mean, he's highly inefficient, overly touchdown dependent. None of these guys were that great and really efficient either. Plus, Tua looked dang good, right? I mean, did you watch the highlights of Tua last week against Arizona? The kid went out there and played great. I expected him to take strides and move forward in this offense, not that much this quickly, they're going to throw the ball a lot with Tua under center, and that's only going to take away the rushing opportunities in this offense. I'm not starting anybody here this week from the Miami Dolphins. Broncos and Raiders in a great matchup here this week for the Denver Broncos. I mean, the Raiders allow over 22 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That's fourth most in the NFL, but this whole dedication to Melvin Gordon thing lately is a little bit puzzling because Phillip Lindsay continues to be the better-looking running back on the ground. And you know what? I'm going to be a little bit ballsy here. How ballsy am I going to be? Phillip Lindsay is going to be my Manscaped must-start of the week. Just a reminder, after this video, head over to manscaped.com. Use promo code HEADLINERS, all caps at checkout. Give you 20% off your order and free shipping. But I just love the way that Phillip Lindsay continues to produce when given the opportunity. The reason he really hasn't been given that chance as of late, Denver's been playing from behind a lot more lately, and they really include Melvin Gordon more in the passing game than they do Phillip Lindsay. In a matchup this week against Las Vegas, it's a game in which I expect them to keep the score closer, involving Phillip Lindsay even more. What about on the Raiders side of things? I mean, damn you, Devontae Booker. I mean, yes, Josh Jacobs was out there on the field and he didn't look half bad, but seeing that touchdown run by Devontae Booker was a straight kick to the nuts. You know what I mean? Because a lot of fantasy owners wanted that to be Josh Jacobs. Booker goes out, has 8 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown. But I'm not overly worried about it. Don't forget that earlier in the week, Josh Jacobs was banged up and he was dealing with an illness. It was probably part of the game plan to get Booker a few extra touches here this week just to make sure that Jacobs was not overworked in a short week due to those issues that he had earlier on. I expect him to be back out there this week, closer to 100%. Difficult matchup, though, going up against Denver. They allow just under 15 fantasy points per game, which is 5th fewest in the NFL. So not the easiest of matchups, but Josh Jacobs and the volume could be back here in Week 10. He's going to remain right here for me in the start column. Bills and Cardinals up now. Let's talk about Chase Edmonds for a second because I fell for it. I fell for it too, right? No Kenyon Drake. Expected Chase Edmonds to come in against the Dolphins and be a smash play, and wasn't. Now, I didn't even listen to my own self from earlier in the season. How many times did I sit here in front of this camera and say on this microphone that it's not the talent of Kenyon Drake or Chase Edmonds that's the big difference. It's the differences in the types of opportunities that they're getting. What did we see from Chase Edmonds here this week? A lot more carries on the ground. Also saw less targets in the passing game, and it led to him finishing as running back 21. Now, a lot of people out there were clamoring the first few weeks of the season saying Chase Edmonds needs to be the starter. Chase Edmonds is better than Drake. Kenyon Drake sucks. I think this past weekend, everything kind of came full circle and showed the big picture, right? Whoever is not included in that passing game is going to struggle or at least have a limited ceiling. It has nothing to do with the talent level of Kenyon Drake over Chase Edmonds. If Drake comes back and he gets the bulk of that early down work, Chase Edmonds slides back into his pass catching role, all of a sudden Chase Edmonds has a better opportunity. It's just Cliff Kingsbury's inability to put these players in positions to really be successful. He's not playing to their skill sets, and that's the problem. There's just no consistency with it. And now, with the reports coming out that Kenyon Drake could return this week, we're right back to the original split from earlier in the season. Kenyon Drake is what he is at this point, and so is Chase Edmonds. They're flex plays at best, and they're going up against Buffalo this week, and if both of them play, they'll both remain in the flex-ish territory. Buffalo allows over 20 fantasy points per game, but we know this running game starts and ends with Kyler Murray, and that's going to limit the upside of these guys as well. Like I said, neither one of these guys suck, but don't go out there and overly hope for something, because in this offense, neither one of these guys are set up to succeed as an early down running back. What about for Buffalo? How the hell did they get a lead like they had against Seattle and not run the ball more? They had 11 rushing attempts for Moss and Singletary combined. Now, no wonder Seattle started to make it, a little bit more interesting. Sure, Buffalo ended up closing it out there later in the game, but honestly, neither one of these running backs are playing overly well right now. The team is not committed to the running game. They're touchdown dependent as of late. Zach Moss seems to have more trust inside the red zone, giving him those touchdown opportunities. Now, Arizona allows right around 19 fantasy points per game, but both of these guys are a risk and neither are a must start. If I had to gamble on somebody here this week, we're hoping for touchdown upside. And as of right now, Moss maybe has a little bit more than Devin Singletary. Niners and Saints, and apparently Jerick McKinnon's tired legs are better, or that was a bunch of BS. Whatever it was, not like he came out and killed it last week by any means. 15 total touches, 68 total yards, and a touchdown. Jermichael Hasty really wasn't used, but honestly, they were down by 21 in what felt like 3 minutes against the Packers. They had no opportunity to even think about running the ball last week in San Francisco. I really don't love this matchup for them this week either. The Saints allow right around 13.5 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, but my biggest concern here is, do we see the same kind of game script we saw last week? Does New Orleans come out and fire on all cylinders and get an early lead and really cause San Francisco to abandon their running game? Yeah, I think that could happen. Now, that makes Jerick McKinnon the better option in this backfield. Is his ceiling overly high? No, it's really not. They should have Brandon Ayuk back, but with the pass-catching upside of Jerick McKinnon, it makes him a flex option for me here in Week 10. For New Orleans, we're obviously going to start Alvin Kamara, right? I mean, it's really not a question of it. Is this the greatest matchup for Alvin Kamara? No, it's really not. San Francisco allows only 13 fantasy points per game, second fewest in the NFL to opposing running backs. But my biggest issue here is he saw his second lowest targets of the season in last week's game. Is that because Michael Thomas is back? No, I really don't think so. I think it's just because their lead was so huge against Tampa Bay, they really didn't need to overuse Alvin Kamara last week whatsoever. Now, his ceiling may be slightly lower this week, but there's no way you sit Alvin Kamara. Seahawks and Rams now, in a whole lot of wait and see in this matchup right here with the Seattle Seahawks at least, right? We still don't know the status of Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde. They're questionable to play as of right now. Do they make it back in time for this weekend's game is the biggest question, right? Because if Chris Carson is healthy, you start him. If he's not, it may be DJ Dallas once again, right? I mean, he has 3 touchdowns over his last 2 games played, but Travis Homer was sprinkled in a little bit more than a lot of people wanted to see in Week 9. He actually out-touched DJ Dallas 31-20, mostly because Seattle was playing from behind, and Travis Homer more of the pass-catching option there last week. Now, like I said, if Chris Carson plays, you start him. If he sits and Carlos Hyde doesn't play again, all of a sudden DJ Dallas becomes a little bit safer. Travis Homer, one of those, maybe 14-team leagues or larger PPR-style scoring, then you consider it. But as of right now, we just really need to wait and see on this backfield to make some better decisions. We'll keep you updated as the week progresses. For Los Angeles, coming off the bye, do we see more Cam Akers here second half of the season to see if they can find out what they have with this young kid? They may sprinkle him in a little bit more, but honestly, Darrell Henderson's still the number one option here in this backfield. Biggest question with him is the thigh injury that he suffered prior to the bye healed, and is he good to go? Because we know they're not going to have to run the ball a whole lot this week, right? We talked about this with Buffalo. They were finding so much success through the air against Seattle, they didn't have to run the ball. Maybe we see that same thing here again this week with Jared Goff and the passing offense. We know Seattle's going to score points. If it's easier to score through the air than on the ground against them, why not continue to throw? Darrell Henderson's going to remain a start for me here this week because he is still the lead option in this backfield and has produced when been given the opportunity. If he gets it this week, he could return some flex value here in Week 10. Bengals and Steelers, and does history repeat itself once again here in 2020? I mean, it was just last year in 2019. Joe Mixon, injured early in the season, struggled at times. The bye week came Week 9 last year. He rests. He comes back Week 10, puts up 150 total yards on Baltimore, and goes on a late season tear, carrying people to fantasy football glory. I mean, now he's coming off the bye week of Week 9, except he's going against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, does he return? It looks like he has a good chance to return, but it's not official as of yet. Just another one of these things we need to monitor here, throughout the week. I mean, it was close maybe in week 8. He never really practiced. They were saying that there was a possibility. Maybe this bye week came at the perfect time to bring him back here in week 10. Going up against Pittsburgh, they only allow 15 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. But it really depends, right? If Mixon starts, he's in your lineup. If Mixon sits, then we turn to Gio Bernard just due to volume alone. Now, for James Conner and the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's coming off his worst game of the season, maybe by far. But Pittsburgh had to play from behind almost the entire game against the Dallas Cowboys, which I know sounds absolutely crazy to think about. They couldn't ever establish the running game on the ground. Ben was out there having to throw the ball all 4 quarters. Speaking of Ben, is he healthy? I mean, is he out there this week? That may be the bigger question that we really need to pay attention to. If Ben isn't under center, can the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals just key in on the run, take away James Conner, and force the likes of Mason Rudolph to beat them? It's something else we just need to watch here throughout the week. Cincinnati does allow over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So as long as Ben's good to go, no issue starting James Conner, looking for a bounce back week here in week 10. Baltimore and New England in 2 backfields that really make you go, I don't know. I mean, Baltimore can't decide if they want to commit to Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins. Now there's a chance that Mark Ingram comes back and he's put into the mix. What does that do to this backfield? I mean, it looks like Baltimore wants to give J.K. more work. He did see 56% of the snaps just last week. But this split between either J.K. and Gus, or if we want to add in Mark Ingram, absolutely kills the ceilings of these guys. If Ingram plays, Gus Edwards kind of non-existent, right? J.K. Dobbins maybe still a little bit more involved, even if Ingram does play. Now, do we feel comfortable with anybody in this backfield here this week going up against New England? I mean, New England hasn't been bad to run against, right? Actually been a lot easier to run against them than it has been to throw against them. It's just one of those things that we just don't understand and trust this backfield enough to make these decisions until we at least know who's going to be active. If Ingram plays, I'll take a chance with J.K. Dobbins, but I really don't want to trust Mark Ingram or Gus Edwards as of right now. Am I overly confident in J.K. Dobbins? I'm not. They're just not committed to one guy enough in this backfield. For New England, we may be without Damian Harris. The one guy getting the bulk of the work in this backfield may not be there. What does that mean? I guess Rex Burkhead is a thing once again, because James White really isn't. He hasn't had more than 4 receptions since week 6, but heck, he's only had over 5 receptions one game all year. And now they get a matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens, who only allow 13.5 fantasy points per game, the fewest in the NFL to opposing running backs. There's just too many unknowns here. It's a bad matchup. And honestly, I prefer to pass all of the running backs here in New England as of right now. For Monday Night Football, we have the Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, and Dalvin Cook is just on another level at this point, right? I mean, he's had at least 130 rushing yards in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has touchdowns in every single game he's played thus far. So far, in just 7 games, he already has over 1,000 total yards and now gets a matchup with the Chicago Bears, who allow right around 17 fantasy points per game. So even, playing devil's advocate here, let's say Chicago holds Dalvin Cook in check. What does holding Dalvin Cook in check look like? 100 yards and a touchdown? That's fine. I'll take that. Absolutely going to start Dalvin Cook once again. For Chicago, David Montgomery doesn't suck, but damn, his numbers do suck for a lot of fantasy football owners right now. He has no touchdown since week 5. Hasn't had more than 89 yards rushing in a game all season, and has only finished inside the top 15 twice at the running back position. Now, Minnesota allows right around 19 fantasy points per game. It's not a bad matchup. Can you afford to sit David Montgomery? This depends on you and what your other options are. He's a start for me right now, but he's going to be, closer to that 25 mark in my rankings. I'm not overly confident because we haven't seen a ceiling all year long for David Montgomery. They're actually starting to throw the ball a little bit more, getting Darnell Mooney more involved. We know that Allen Robinson's going to get his. Jimmy Graham scoring touchdowns. David Montgomery is kind of just like in this offense right now. Look at the other options on your roster. If you have a better one, I don't hate you for using it. David Montgomery isn't a must-start by any means, but as of right now, somebody who I'll throw in my flex if need be. All right, those are my starts and sits for the running back position here, Week 10 fantasy football. A lot of things we need to pay attention to, right? There's a lot of unknowns so far here in Week 10. Just a reminder, we'll have more updates when we come out with our running back rankings video, our injury report video with Dr. Ethan Turner on Friday, our live shows Saturday evening. We try to keep you updated all throughout the week. So by the time you have to set all your lineups, you're good to go and know exactly what it is that you need to do. We greatly appreciate the support out there. If you could do me one favor real quick, hit the like button on the video. It greatly helps us out on YouTube. If you want to leave a comment down below, we try our best to get to as many of them as possible, but you the viewer, you part of Headliner Nation, you guys are all out there interacting with each other, and we love to absolutely see that. That's what this community was built for. Not just to listen to 1, 2, or 3 guys on a camera. No, it's to build an entire community and have us all be in this thing together. So we love to see that, and we greatly appreciate the support. Hopefully you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.